Here we go. Green flag racing in Rush SR at Lime Rock Park. We're underway.
Stig gets a nose ahead. See if he can carry that down into the turn. No! Big lunge by Leach. He floats out a little bit wide. And Ayrton Grimm, this is an opportunity for Ayrton. He said he learned a ton in that first race, but it was Gamma and that bright yellow machine getting around Grimm, grabbing that third spot.
Yeah, the starts have been tricky, I think, for Grimm. He's learning so much for the aggressiveness. When you're new to a car, you don't necessarily have the full confidence to send it in there into Big Bend like Gamma did, but now they're nose to tail heading towards turn 5, the uphill, and it's Leach leading Stig, leading Gamma, leading Grimm.
Yeah, and watch for Leach here in that first race earlier today. If you weren't able to join us, by about mid-race on, that car got wicked loose and was absolutely sideways everywhere. Somehow he hung on it to win. And one thing when I was talking to Ayrton, he came up for the interview, and he made some comments about how much he learned watching those guys. And he said the tires came in for me just a little late. And he said, so we're going to make a little change, see if I can't get them to come in a little bit sooner. And he was setting fast laps each lap in the latter part of that, had fast lap in the race itself. So young Ayrton, and the one thing I asked him about it, are you more comfortable in these cars than you were GLTC, because it's a little closer to a go-kart, which he just came out of in terms of a Formula car prototype feel. And he said it's more similar. Yeah, he said, but it's still very different than a go-kart. So you still have to get your head around how to drive it. I think he's doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Leach establishing a slight lead, 0.3 of a second. It's about as large of a lead as he got the last time. But give the Rush Stig a few laps, and we'll see if Leach is leaning as much on that left rear tire, if he's made any adjustments, perhaps.
Exactly.
I don't think it can't be good to lean that much on the left rear tire at a clockwise track like this. So I imagine that maybe some tuning and some tweaking to get that car to not yaw quite so much could play to his advantage.
Yeah, I mean, he was, by the end of it, that thing was just sideways, and it was a huge testament to his skill set that he was able to drive it that way and hang on for the win. But I think he's going to have to make his adjustment. But the one thing I'm noticing, he's very much an early turn-in guy. You watch him into Big Bend, much sooner he's angling in than anybody else. And what that does is you get mid-corner, and now you've got to get some big rotation, and that just starts to heat up that left rear.
Yeah, and I think Big Bend leaves you some options,
there
right?
We go.
It's such a long corner.
Yeah.
You can approach it kind of shallow and drift out and tuck in tight, or you can kind of radius the whole thing as one. There's a few different ways you can approach it, depending on how these cars are balanced and where you are in the wind stream as well. It's considering the downforce these cars make. That's a consideration out of such a long sweeping bend. But Ayrton Grimm, fastest of the front runners.
There
that
you go.
Time through.
Yeah, he said he wanted, and this was now a number of laps sooner than he did in that first race when he started setting those fast laps. So that car's coming to him a little bit better here. And the thing is that you have all of those different lines in Big Bend, and they're, that early in diamond and outline can be a really fast line, but it's not a great line sometimes when you're racing. When you got somebody behind you, because as you turn in early then float out, they dive inside. So then if you insist on driving that, look at that again, if you insist on driving that early turn-in line and you got somebody behind you, you got to pinch your exit a little bit, and that's when you get that back end swinging around, that chews up that left rear.
What's strange is that Leach attacks West Bend so aggressively with that left rear out, but it gains him time.
Yeah.
He's trading the longevity of that tire for speed, but it's a great defensive maneuver because it leads into the downhill, which leads into the straigaway where your only real passing opportunity is. Yeah. So if you're good on that end of the racetrack, it's going to be hard for anyone to find a way around.
That's a really good point here. And, one thing that we saw was that his willingness to attack the uphill and West Bend that's where he would always gain a little time, even though he was really sideways there, like you said. But the thing is, how long can you maintain that before you really start hurting that tire big time?
Yeah, the battle for the lead could heat up. I'm looking at 9th and 10th on the running order. Hamilton and Forsberg, the two drivers running for Team Rapscallion with the Sunoco liveries. those two drivers, I mean, they come from a drift background. Not a lot of traditional racing background. For them to be in the top 10 in this fight and nose to tail, I bet you they're having a huge blast right now, competing against each other with the competition so fierce.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing was, Forsberg had out-qualified Hamilton for the first race by a fair chunk, and Hamilton was able to run him down and finish in front of him. So there's a serious inter-team mano-a-mano scrap going on. Are you seeing puffs of smoke going into one?
I wasn't. I was just thinking that Forsberg was just in a drift car like 12, 15 minutes ago. And he must already be hot and sweaty jumping right in. That's impressive in its own right. But I'll keep an eye on the smoke into one.
It was just going into one. I thought, I don't know who it was, but it seemed like there was a nice puff of smoke. Maybe it's just a little bit of dirt that was on the inside of the track. But
not a lot of yaw that time for Leach.
Maybe he realized because it seems to me he was getting all those slides earlier than he did in the first race. And, can you keep that alive for 15 minutes?
He almost didn't last time. There was some lap traffic that played into it. And I think we're going to have lap traffic be a factor again.
Yep.
Just based on the time differences that we're seeing. And obviously the Rush Dig paid attention to it. Eric Grimm paid attention to it. You have to pounce when you get your opportunity because it takes you 3 or 4 laps to build a run that the Stig is trying to do right now.
Well, that's the one thing. This track, we've talked about it a lot, and you're going to hear it more. It may be the definitive momentum track. And in a spec group, it's all about carrying mid-corner and exit speed, because if you can do that better than the guy behind you or the guy in front of you, you're either going to distance yourself or you're going to run that guy down in front of you. And that's what you have to do in these cars. But if you suddenly lose that momentum, these aren't 4, 5, 6, 800 horsepower cars. It takes a little longer for it to spool back up again, and that's where you can get hurt.
Yeah, about 145 horsepower from the GSX motorcycle engine, effectively. It's chain-driven.
Yep.
And the Rush Dig picks up the best lap of the race, 2/10, and 15 is on
Bruno Papura. And he's been struggling a little bit with speed, and he may have a little bit of a problem there. But I think the Stig now, there you can see, he sees that rotation. And I think, obviously the Stig's going to know that's happening earlier. Hound him and really get him to damage that of that right rear tire and see if he can do something. And Grimm looking really anxious to get around on Gama here.
Well, he sees these front two starting to battle, and Gama's dropped off their tail.
Yeah.
He does not want to be left out of this fight, so he's got to dispatch Gama before he runs out of time.
Yeah, the Stig just set fast lap in the race. So he's upped it as well here.
And through the downhill, across the stripe, about halfway through this race, give or take. And it's still 0.2 of a second. Gama and Grimm right behind.
And then there's the blue car, Radman, and he happens to be second in the championship. It's a ways off of Leach right now, but he's there. And again, Leach really crossed up.
It's so strange how it doesn't seem to hurt him that bad. Like when he slips, he's still got his foot to the floor, and he's able to salvage it in a way that doesn't leave him vulnerable in the next corner.
Oh, sorry, was just watching down into turn 1 out our window here, and 2 guys went in side by side. It was a late breaking duel, and I hope they both made it through. They were getting after it here, but it just shows you how far deep in the pack we're seeing some serious racing going on here.
So 5-6 car lengths between the 2 leaders. And Gama kind of got back up and distanced Grimm again just enough. But it's just been these 4 in a 4-car breakaway this time. It was 3 cars in race 1, but Gama has inserted himself right in the midst. And the Rush Dig, fastest of the race again. Oh man, Leach hanging it out sideways through Big Bend. And all 4 are beginning to accordion back together.
They are.
As the timer ticks down to 0.
At a certain point, you would think, and we said this in the first race, and so Leach may, have this well in hand here, but at a certain point, if you keep throwing that car sideways, you would think you're going to hit that point of diminishing returns where that tire is just going to get too hot, too damaged, too whatever to be able to do anything. But every time we say that, he does this. He gaps them a little bit here. And one thing I'm noticing is he is being much more circumspect in West Bend. After those first couple laps here, when we saw him looking like he did the whole race in the first one where he was all sideways, Leach now is looking a lot more, easy on his line through West Bend. giving up maybe a little bit of flow through there to keep that tire underneath him a bit.
Yeah, so while these front four continue to battle, but keeping my eyes on Hamilton and Forsberg. Here they are, the Team Rapscallion cars. Sunoco liveried machines, both drift drivers from their past, but today they're racing. And here's Forsberg all over Nate Hamilton for ninth.
Yeah, he is giving it some serious welly here, and he's looking for a way through. And great looking cars, aren't they, with that graphics package, and they are being driven exceptionally well. And you can see there where Hamilton just was better from the midpoint of Big Bend into the transition for the left-hander. And that's the thing. You find yourself that little spot where you can gap him by a couple of car lengths. That'll pay big dividends. But just that quick, then Forsberg gets right back onto his six.
It's so much fun because while they don't necessarily have a ton of wheel-to-wheel road racing experience, Nate Hamilton had none. It still is a learning experience for both of them. And to watch drivers from a completely different sector of motorsports be able to do this so well, this is what GridLife is all about. It's, the inclusion of motorsports. Doesn't matter if it's drift, DE, time attack, side-by-side racing here between two drift buddies. Here comes Forsberg down the inside, and Hamilton crossed him over.
That was beautiful. The outside-in move paid off big there. And that Hamilton just showed patience there, didn't he? He saw Forsberg make the move. He said, I'm just going to wait, and there he goes.
That was unbelievable, and I don't think we're done just yet.
No.
Forsberg, he learned something there.
You bet he did.
You can brake late, just maybe not that much.
Not quite there.
He got it slowed down, kept it on the course, though, and that can be very useful to know. So go back to the leaders. Lap traffic coming up for Leach and the Rush Stig.
Yeah, that's Tom Burns right in front of them. And as you can see, Grimm taking a look to the inside. Did he get through for third?
Not quite.
He's working the outside angle now.
And he is through. What a pass.
Right. Yeah, beautiful.
So now he's got to make up 1.4 seconds or so as those front two get into traffic. It's not over yet by any stretch.
Well, he told me, he said, one, the tires came in a little late. He said, but I was also really babying them a little bit. I wanted grip late, but he's left only 3 minutes left in this. That's a lot to try and make up in a relatively short amount of time here.
And I'll be honest, Greg, we have not, we've got time. So with these races, again, we run in a time block.
Yep.
And we've got 14 minutes left in this time block. So I'm not going to say they're going to run for all 14. I'm just not going to say they're going to cut it short.
Oh, big lock up there by the Stig. Cost him a few car lengths.
Got it wound down, though.
Yeah, he did. But
3/10 is all that stands between him and Ryan Leach. Onto the rumble strips there at turn 3. Look at him working the wheel.
Oh, I love it. And Grimm got hung up in that traffic. Again, Tom Burns, he did everything he could to get out of the way, but it took Grimm a while to get through, and he's lost about 1.5 seconds to this battle up front. That margin now up to about 2.5 seconds.
I saw Forsberg go by Hamilton, and I also hear some bodywork flapping on somebody driving around the track, so there might have been a little touch somewhere.
Here are the top two. Here comes Grimm.
Yeah, it's definitely something flapping around. You hear it on the audio, which is just, these cars have such an amazing soundtrack.
They do.
Into turn 1, I don't see anything amiss.
No.
Oh, big slide for Ryan Leach. That's too much. That won't be fast, and the Rush Stig is going to have to pounce if he wants by.
Yeah, and that may be that wounded left tire now, as Martin Brundle would say in Formula One. It just has lost interest.
Well, I bet you the Rush Stig will take a peculiar interest to
yes, he will.
The condition of Leach's left rear tire, and more traffic.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, Gama has not just let Grimm get away. He's sticking with him a bit here. Oh, and this is the same thing we had in that previous race. That's Joe Tang, and that is a teammate to the leader, Leach. And again, just gets way out of the way. White flag.
Last lap around here in Rush SR Race 2. And it's 3 car lengths between Ryan Leach and the Rush Stig.
I think that's Grimm.
It does sound like that, yeah. That could explain also why he hasn't maybe run down these front two, but into turn 3, and this is going to be tight here between these two. Ryan Leach has got to keep an eye on those mirrors onto the Paul Newman straight.
Well, it's the uphill where Leach generally is able to pull out a little bit of an advantage here. Let's see what happens.
Over the crest.
No big gain. I mean, it's a few car lengths. He's looking okay here, and see how much more planted he is through West Bend. So I think he's done enough.
He has done enough. I don't think the Rush Stig's got much for him this time. Last time out is 64,000. Big crossover thrown, and the Stig's going to pit in. That's going to give Grimm second place. Leach crosses the stripe, wins the race. Grimm flapping something comes across the stripe second.
He was losing a half second a lap from whatever that was.
Yeah, so the Stig will often pit in, so that's not a huge surprise. But so let's take a look at this 49. Do we see what's going on? It sounded like it might have been underneath the car.
I don't see it. You know, the front splitter is not flapping at all. So I wonder if it's a diffuser on the back. Tough to tell.
Yeah. Either way.
Yep.
That time, Leach made it a little more decisively, and Forsberg is the one that beats Hamilton, so he managed to get that pass complete and beat Hamilton by 3 seconds. So Forsberg's the new guy to the car. Hamilton has an event under his belt.
Wow, that's going to be interesting. And I'll tell you what, Gamma was coming back after Grimm when Grimm had that problem, and Grimm made a super aggressive pass on Joseph Tang in the number 48, and that's what got him the margin because Gamma could not sneak through at the same time. That's what saved that second spot for him.
Yeah, what a great race again.
Yes.
But I think there's still more brewing in this.
I think so.
And take another look at Grimm. The diffuser seems on it, so
looks good.
Could be something under the floor as well. Here's a look at the highlights from this one.
Maybe he was pushing so hard in the throttle, forget it.
And through West Bend again, Ryan Leach has been hanging that thing out super sideways, and Cole Gamma got through to third on Ayrton Grimm. And you have to wonder, had Grimm been right up with those top two, maybe he could have done something about it, but he had to dispatch Gamma first. But again, these front four have just put on a show so far this weekend. And this is the same thing that happened at Road America with a different group of drivers. It was just 3 or 4 that would always break away, and it just becomes a absolute chess match.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just and for the Stig, to watch Ryan Leach and then these two guys was so fun to watch. And there was that big lunge. Now watch him overshoot. Beautiful counter move.
Yeah, excellently done there. And big lockup, that's what you pointed out earlier, Greg, just getting too deep into the brakes. And was this the big slide here for Ryan Leach?
I think it was another lap. But we're going to get the checker here. Yeah, it was weird. I thought that the Stig got